my demonstration speech, we're going to be hooking up a subwoofer, an amp, and everything to the battery, get it hooked up with the head unit, put it in our sound system.
Alright, so the first thing you're going to need to do is disconnect your battery. That way you don't shock anything out and everything else. I would have disconnected my battery, but right now it's hooked up real well, and we already installed the power line, so all we had to do is take out the fuse. That won't have any power going to everything that you're doing in the back until you put the fuse back in, so that'll be fine. Otherwise, you would disconnect the negative first, then the positive, put the power wire on there, and then hook it all back up. So now we're going to move to the back of the car. Alright, so we just fed our power wire all the way from the front of the battery, through the molding, into the trunk. And from that, we're going to install that to our 450 watt V-Power amp. It's going to be powering our sub today. Our sub is rated at 250 RMS, and this thing has a 300 watt RMS, so it'll be great. Right here we have our 4 outputs, but we're only going to need 1 for the install today. So yeah, we'll go bring the sub in here that we're going to be using. It's a JL Audio 12-inch. Not sure exactly the specs, except that it's 250 RMS in a sealed enclosure. Not going to be as loud as it ported, but it'll work for this install. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to need to get some kind of signal to your sub through your amp. So what you're going to have to do is, I have an aftermarket head unit, so what we're going to end up doing, we're going to go up to the head unit. I'm going to show you where to plug in your RCA cables, so it gives you your signal for your amp. They would go right in to your input right here. So we'll just plug those in there, follow it through, come back to it. So what we're going to end up doing is, we have our aftermarket head unit. We're going to end up pulling this out. Right behind it we have all of our connections. Right here is your RCA cables. Now go from your subwoofer output on the back of your amp for this situation. We're going to be leading that all the way through the trunk. Other situations you're going to have to tap into one of your speaker wires using an inline converter, but because we have our aftermarket head unit, that'll be all good. So we feed it back and then through the dash, fed along the opposite side of our power wire, so there's no interference. But we're going to go back to the trunk now. So if you look in here, we have our RCA cables that we fed through from the output on the stereo. And so we're going to be plugging these into the amp. So you have your different channels and your outputs and stuff like that. For this, we're just going to be using our first channel here. So we're just going to plug it in right here. Put that back down. Pretty simple enough. Now, in order for the amp to turn on, we need a remote wire. So we're going to go back up to the front, and you can either install it in behind the head unit, or you can install it in a separate fuse for like the engine fuse when the engine is on, blinkers, tail lights, whatever you want to do. Normally we would be installing this up in our head unit. There's a remote wire, blue wire in the back of the head unit. But for me, I didn't feel like taking the stereo out every time I wanted to change something. So I have a fuse box down here. You have a bunch of your fuses right here. And we have it fed right in here, which is our engine fuse. So we fed that through the paneling. We'll be bringing that right back through. Alright, so we fed a remote wire through the car, little tiny blue wire here. We're going to twist the end a little bit. Going to grab our amp. We're going to find where the remote input is. That'll be this one right here. So we're going to lie this down. I'm going to stick this in here, and we're going to screw that down into place with our drill. Alright, now that the remote wire's in there, we have our signal to our amp. Now, we're just going to install the ground first. You always want to put the ground in first. And then we'll end up hooking the positive, and then we'll send our speaker wire up to our amp, and we should be almost completed. Alright, so now we just installed our positive wire, our negative wire, and a remote wire. All that's left now, because we got our RCAs hooked up, just need to put these in the amp, and put them in the sub, and see if this thing runs. Oh, I almost forgot. We have our fuse that kind of back up. So let's put our fuse back in the line. Alright, let's turn the car on and see what we can do. So if you see the sub in the back, we got it all hooked up, got the seats out. Alright, we got our Bluetooth set up by some Ramp God by M&M. Because my cameraman here, it's his favorite.
I was going to go easy on you, not to hurt your feelings, but I'm only going to get this one chance.
Alright.
Alright,
good. It's working well. We're gonna run the back and see how much it's affecting.
Enemy is bananas, you say. I'm not taking any chances. You're just one of the side.
Alright, well, you have just successfully installed your subwoofer. Alright, so I noticed that I didn't have my face in much of the video after I looked through all the footage, but this is what I have so far. We just completed after like a day of hooking stuff up. We took actually the jail out and put in my other subs. This is what the finished product would look like. To get this done, I may have left my iPod on the top of my car and then drove down the street. It was still there when I was done, but yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. But yeah, so I guess that's it. We're gonna clock out for today. Everything looks good. It's all hooked up. Should be done with this for a while. So good luck with you guys.